everybody, welcome to my channel. My name's Mel. Thank you so much for joining me today for the knitting book tag. So as the name suggests, this is a tag that is based around various different ways that you knit, different types of stitches and different things to do with knitting. It was created by Cara from Wild Book Garden. I watched her video recently and really enjoyed it, thought that it was really interesting and really fun. So I decided that I would really like to do the tag, even though I personally am not a knitter. So I don't actually know what any of the various terms and different things that Cara has created this tag out of mean. I will link her video, her original video where she goes through everything and explains what the specific things are and why she's made the tag, made that question the way that it is. So if you want all of that information, if you, like me, aren't a knitter and you don't actually know what these things mean, but also because Cara is great and this video is really fun, you should definitely go and check that video out and subscribe to her channel. But yes, today I'm going to do the knitting tag. I have my computer here with all of my answers to the various questions, so I might be occasionally looking down for all of that, so just bear with. Okay, so the first question is cast on, which is, I believe, the term that describes the initial action that you do when you've just started a knitting project. And the actual prompt is the first section you scope out in a bookstore, library, or when you're online book shopping. So there's actually kind of two answers to this question. When I'm online browsing, I'm often doing that in conjunction with watching a video. So I'll actually often just be typing out the books that people are talking about. But when I go to the library or when I go to a bookstore, I usually just go straight to general fiction because I read quite widely, and general fiction is usually kind of the first thing that you walk into in various places. In particular, my favourite bookstore in town where I live is an independent bookstore, and when you walk in there, you basically kind of like off to the left is general fiction, and then there's a special Tasmania section. It's kind of hidden off to the side and back this way, and I will go and look at that, but I usually just go straight over because it's the first thing you walk into and look at the general fiction and the new releases. So yeah. Alright, so question number 2 is for knit, which I think is actually a type of stitch that you do in knitting, and it says obviously a staple of knitting, as the name suggests. So a super hype book that you think completely delivered for you personally. And for this one, I've chosen The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by B.E. Schwab. If you guys have been around on my channel for any length of time, you would know that I absolutely loved this book. I read it sometime towards the beginning of last year in 2021. Just thought it was absolutely brilliant. Really enjoyed B.E. Schwab's writing style. Really liked Addie as a character and just really enjoyed the plot and the way that everything was put together. So yeah. Definitely The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. It was at the time super hyped up. I think it got a special edition in like every book box store, what have you, that do special editions. There was an anniversary edition, special anniversary edition created after 1 year. So it was very hyped up, but I really thought that it delivered and I really thought it was worth all the hype. So yeah. Question number 3 is called Purl. And Cara has written, as important as the knit stitch, but probably not as famous. And then she has said, name a character you think deserves more love from the fandom, the author, other characters, or in whatever way you think it applies. So the person that I've chosen for this question is Ethan Holstrom, who is one of the characters in the Crescent City series, and I really liked his character. I thought that he was really loyal, he was really strong in his convictions, he really followed what he believed in. Although he spends a lot of time in the first bit of the first book being at odds with the main character, you can really understand his reasoning behind it, and it wasn't so much, it was miscommunication trope, but it was very much miscommunication because of things that happen in circumstances and the various emotional attachments to the various circumstances. It wasn't just, oh, you didn't talk to me for 2 minutes and now you're angry with me. You didn't check in. So yeah, I just really liked his character, and I really feel like he's a very underrated character. I feel like there needs to be maybe more of him in the books, but not just more of him in the books. I feel like Sarah J Maas, when writing his character, didn't appreciate the character she'd written and just kind of didn't give him not even just the time in the book, but just the respect that he deserved, if that makes any sense. But yeah, so Ethan Holstrom is the answer to the question. Question number 4 is chart. And for this, we need to choose a book or author you've been meaning to read, but somehow just haven't got around to yet, and why. For this one, I've chosen The Disappearance of Ember Crow by Amberlynn Quay Molina, which is the second book in the Tribe trilogy by Amberlynn Quay Molina. I don't really have an answer to the question as to why I haven't got around to reading it. I just haven't got around to reading it. Despite having put it on multiple TBRs at this point, it just never seems to be a priority. But it is on November's TBR, so I will make sure it's a priority because I do really want to read it. I really enjoyed the first book, and it's been a lot longer than I wanted it to be, or I thought it would be, before I read this next book. So I really, really want to read it, and yeah, I don't really have a reason. Like I said, I just haven't prioritized it. Other books I've been more excited about or have needed to read because of book clubs and read-alongs and things like that. So yeah, that's that one. Question number 5 is called double pointed needles, or DPNs. So these are the types of needles that you can knit on both ends, and you can use it for making circular things, I think. So the question for that is to recommend a series you can actually read out of order, and one that people think you can read out of order but you actually can't. So the first part of the question is to recommend a book series that you can in fact read out of order. I haven't read the entire series. I've only read the first one, but I think that you can read the Brown Sisters trilogy out of order. I'm pretty sure that although you get Chloe and Danny in... Sorry. You get all 3 sisters in all 3 books, but like Danny and Evie weren't main characters in Get Life Chloe Brown. I mean, they were there and they were present, but they weren't main characters, and I think that's the case in the other 2. So I think if you start, you can start anywhere basically. I don't think you have to read Chloe in order to then read Danny. So that's my answer to the first part of the question. The second part of the question, I'm going to answer with Robin Hobb. And the reason, or the Realm of the Elderling series, and the reason why I'm answering that is because although technically we have like the first trilogy, the Farseer trilogy, and then we have the second trilogy, the Live Ship Traders, and then we have the third trilogy, and each book in the trilogy / the quartet, which is the Brainwild Chronicles, you have to read in that order. A lot of people think that you can read the different trilogies or quartet within any order, but you can really only do that with the first 2 trilogies. So you can read the Live Ship Traders before you've read the Farseer trilogy, but you really can't continue with any of the other series unless you've read both the Farseer trilogy and the Live Ship Traders. So yeah, that's my answer to that question. I also have a kind of in-between answer to the question, which is the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett. So the Discworld series is a bunch of books all set in the Discworld, which is a fantasy place. There technically is an order, so there's the first book, which is The Colour of Magic, and then it's all in, you can read it in chronological order, starting with The Colour of Magic, but within the series there are individual series and there are some standalones. You can definitely read the standalones independently, so you could pick up Pyramids or Small Gods or Monstrous Regiment or The Truth and read those by themselves and still really enjoy them and not necessarily have to have read anything else. And you can pick up any of the series within the series. So you can pick up the Watch series, you can pick up the Witches series, you can pick up the Moist von Lipwick series, you can pick up the Rincewind Wizard series. You can pick up any of those series within any order that you want to, but within those individual series, you really need to read them from start to finish. So if you want to read The Watch, you really need to start with Guards and read it in series. Similarly, if you want to read The Witches, you really need to start with Weird Sisters. There's a few out of the first 4 books that Pratchett ever released, they are the first 4 books of bunches of different series, and then there's like Equal Rights, which technically could go in the Wizards or could go in the Witches, but doesn't really necessarily start either series, so it's a little bit confusing with some of his books. But yeah, it's sort of a either or both answer. So yeah. Next up we have Cables, and the question for that is a book that you heard negative reviews about but you ended up loving anyway. For this one I'm actually going to go with The Wizard of Earthsea Quartet by Ursula K. Le Guin. So I read this quartet a long time ago. I've read it a couple of times, but it's been probably 15, maybe even 20 years since I've read it. So I don't remember a huge amount about it, but I remember really, really enjoying it when I read it. I have since, in the last couple of years, since being involved in BookTube, I have seen a number of different people reading them and then not enjoying them. But yeah, I really liked them and I thought they were really interesting, really well written and really, really fun. But it's been such a long time that I can't really, I maybe wouldn't like them now, I don't know, but yeah, I was surprised that people weren't liking them and seemed not just to not like them that much, but seemed to like really quite dislike them. So yeah, that's the answer to that question. Okay, question number 7 is skein. I think that's how you say the word. And what the question says is, why do we still sell yarn like this? So I think it's a way that that yarn is packaged and sold, but I remember Cara saying that you'd never use it directly from the skein. You have to do something else with it before you can then actually knit with it. So the question for the book though is a trope that you can't stand and that you wish people would stop writing. My answer to this question is fake dating. I don't get fake dating. I recently did do a little bit of a rant about fake dating, and I can't remember what video that was in, so I can't link it below. It may even have been alive, but anyway, I don't like fake dating. I don't understand fake dating. Maybe I just haven't come across an example of the trope that I thought was done well or that I appreciated for whatever reason, but I just don't get it. I just don't think that it's, what reason would you have for doing it? Don't get me wrong, I know that in historical context, people would have a marriage of convenience potentially, or do something so that they could live their life how they wanted to without having all the pressures of society coming down upon them. Like a marriage that was a fake marriage, but you know, we don't really love each other, we don't really want to be together, but people are going to keep haranguing us until we actually get married, so let's just marry each other because we get along reasonably well, and then we can just, you know, go about our lives and pretend that, and everyone can be happy and it can be all fine because we don't really care that much in the first place about marriage. Or perhaps it was for a reason because of homophobia or something. So maybe one or both parties were queer and they lived in a society that was homophobic or where it was, you know, outlawed, and so they would marry each other in order to, again, so people wouldn't know, but they could just, you know, be honest with each other, but just other people would think that they were just in a normal heterosexual relationship. So in that sort of situation, I do get it. I get a marriage convenience, I get a fake relationship in order to not have society's pressures or not be discovered to be doing something that is not legal. So I get that. But where I've come across it in contemporary books, in a Western situation in contemporary times now, I don't understand. I don't understand what the point of it is, because unless you still happen to have parents who are incredibly homophobic and so you're trying to get them off your back, or, you know, there's still arranged marriages and different things like that. But in a Western context, the reasons always seem to be really like spurious and they don't make sense to me. So yeah, fake dating. Question number 8 is gauge swatch, which I got no idea what that means, but the question for the books is share an author who is always a good fit for you. So for this one, I have got 2 authors. I have got Laurie R. King and I have got Terry Pratchett. I have loved absolutely everything that I have ever read from either of those authors. With Terry Pratchett, that includes anything I've read with him writing with another author. So Good Omens is one of my favourite books of all time. He wrote that with Neil Gaiman. And then Laura King is just an incredible author and I love everything she's ever written. So those two. Question number 9 is Stitch Marker. And for this one, we are to share a specific scene that stands out clearly in your mind. I think I'm going to talk about a scene from a book called blah, blah, blah. A scene from a book by Lore King. It's the first one that popped into my head just now. I hadn't written anything down. And that is this scene in the first book of the Mary Russell series, Beekeeper's Apprentice. And it is the scene where the main character, Mary Russell, literally runs into Sherlock Holmes. So she's reading a book and she's got the book up like this and she is walking through the Sussex Downs and I'm not sure what Holmes is doing. I feel like he notices her, but he just kind of is watching her and like wondering whether or not she's going to notice him, and she barrels straight into him. He is an older man, he's in his 60s, and she is like 15 years old, and it's just a really funny incident, and it just popped into my head, so that's the one we're going with. Okay, the next question says yarn weight. And it says, super useful info to take in at a glance. Do you have some bookish taste buddies? So someone that you have really similar taste to in general or for a specific kind of book. So my two best friends, Max and Rachel, who do not have BookTube channels, so I have not linked below. I have known since I was in my early 20s, I think probably 20. And I've lived with Rachel on a number of different occasions in a couple of different countries, and always we lived quite close to Max. Currently, we all live in different countries or different parts of Australia, but in the past. And so I think that our taste has very much influenced each other. So I think that we all have very similar tastes, and I think that's because we kind of did a lot of developing in our 20s together and influencing what the other thought. So yeah. Max and Rachel, we have very, very similar taste. All of us think of the Realm of the Elderling series by Robin Hobb as one of our favourite series, and think of the Mary Russell series by Lore King as one of our favourite series, and we all absolutely love Pratchett. So those two. In terms of booktubers, I think it's going to have to be more specific kind of genres. So I think when it comes to young adult fantasy, I think Ellie from Earl Grey Books and I have quite similar taste. I think when it comes to sort of, I guess, fantasy in general, particularly high fantasy, sort of epic fantasy, I think that Bethany from Beautifully Bookish Bethany and I have quite similar taste. I think in terms of classics, Cara, who created this tag, and I have very similar taste. Yeah, so those are your answers. Question number 11 says, that novelty yarn someone gifted you because they heard you like knitting, but it's impossible to work with. And then relating to books, it says, what's a book that looked perfect for you on paper but just didn't work out? I'm not sure. I think I have the answer to the question. Cursebreaker Trilogy by Bridget Kemmerer. I quite liked the first one. It wasn't amazing, but I thought it was fun, and it was a good time. So that was A Curse So Dark and Lonely. The second one, although I think I liked it a little bit more than A Curse So Dark and Lonely, some things, but some things I didn't like as much, so it was kind of pretty similar. But then I really didn't like the last one, A Vow So Bold and Deadly. I just didn't like it. There were too many perspectives, and the perspectives didn't get enough time. I didn't like some of the tropes that were used. I didn't think that the relationships made any sense, and yeah, just really didn't like it. You would think though that given that it's fantasy and given that it is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast is one of my favourite fairy tales, and one of my favourite Disney productions, and I do love a good retelling, particularly folk tales or mythology, so you'd think that it would work perfectly for me, but it just really didn't. So yeah, that's that one. Question number 12 is Scarf, the perfect starter project. And for this, I need to recommend a book that I think is a fantastic book to get into the genre or style of book. So for this one, I am going to say The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. So this is a portal fantasy, and it's historical fiction as well. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. The reason that I'm saying this is my answer to this question, is because we actually did this for my book club, and although my mum and I are massive fantasy readers, there are a couple of people who really aren't very big fantasy readers at all in the book club, and one who was very much kind of like, oh, but everyone really enjoyed it. So I do think that it is an excellent book to read if you don't read a lot of fantasy, and because I have done an experiment, I'm quite happy to say that, yeah, 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow is the answer to the question. Question 13 is socks. So handmade socks are way harder than people think they are. Talk about an underappreciated author who deserves more hype. So I have two people for this one. The first one is Joanne Harris, and I think that she's an amazing author. One of my favourite books of all time is Chocolat. I think she released a book recently or in the last couple of years. Her books are very well loved, but they're just not super popular on BookTube, at least. They don't get a huge amount of hype, even though they're usually fantastic, and I've pretty much enjoyed every single one. And the other person is Lore King. So Lore King writes mystery books. They're not thrillers, they're definitely mysteries, kind of cozy mysteries, and I think they're fantastic. I really, really enjoy them. I think they're incredibly well written, very intelligent, and well researched and well put together. She's still writing. She's written another book recently, which I haven't got my hands on yet, but I really want to. And yeah, I just don't hear anyone talking about her at all on BookTube or Bookstagram. So yeah, I really think that those two authors need a lot more love and a lot more attention. So please go read some of their books. And then question number 14 is cast off, which is how you end your knitting. And Cara did say that she loves casting off. It gives her a real sense of achievement. And so for this one, I have to pick a weirdly specific thing about books that I love. So it could be a trope, something in the construction of the book, and or so on. I really love, in terms of like the actual construction of a book, like the physicality of a book, I really love naked hardcovers. I think they are just absolutely beautiful. I kind of find dust jackets a little bit annoying, and I often end up having to take them off while I'm reading, but I really love a naked hardcover. I think that they can be done beautifully, and yeah, they're just really cool. In terms of like trope type of things, I don't know if this is weirdly specific, but I really, really like those sort of multi-generational stories. So something where, like, say for example, you have in the 1890s someone who did something dodgy, stole something, and then hid it in a specific hideaway place in their grandmother's estate or something like that. And then like various things happen down the ages, and it's, you know, various things come back to kind of haunt the family as a result of this one specific thing that happened, and it affects the generations, and there's this whole mystery surrounding it, and people have to try and figure out what happened in the past and find out more about the family member that they didn't know. And yeah, I really like those sorts of stories. So yeah, that's my answer. So question number 15 is crafting party. Honestly, one of the best parts of any hobby is sharing it with friends. So tag some people who craft or who might like to answer these questions. I don't know anyone specifically who does crafting, anyone in the BookTube sphere. So I'm just going to tag some people who I think would enjoy the questions. I'm going to tag Ellie from Earl Books, Lana from Lore and Lullabies, and Paige from Pages with Paige, because I basically tag them in anything and everything at this point. I am going to tag Victoria from What Victoria Read, because I think that she'd really, really enjoy this tag. I am going to tag Olivia Savannah from Olivia's Catastrophe, because I think that she'd really enjoy this tag as well. Although now that I said that, I have a suspicion she may have already been tagged by Cara. But if not, I'm tagging you, Olivia. And who else am I going to tag? I am going to tag Kaz from Cats and Camera. I feel like Kaz is a crafty person. She does like art, drawing and painting. So I don't know if she knits, but I think this would be the sort of thing she'd appreciate and enjoy. And the final person I'm going to tag is Meredith from Reading with Merb. Again, I don't know if Meredith does crafting or knitting specifically, but I do feel like it's the kind of cozy book tag she would enjoy. So yeah, those are all the people that I'm going to tag. Those are all the answers to the questions. Please comment below anything that you would like to tell me about. What did you think of my answers to these questions? Are you going to do the tag yourself? Yeah, let me know all that in the comments below. If you'd like to leave me a comment but you don't know what, then leave me if you can find like a ball of yarn kind of emoji. All of my social media details are listed in the description below, so if you'd like to go and follow me on any of those other platforms, please feel free to do so. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would absolutely love it if you would subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. And yeah, like I said, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.